Gopijana Balabhagavadari Jaya Gopijana Balabhagavadari Jaya Gopijana Jamuna Tira Panachari Jai Radha Marga Kunja Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya
Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Gora Nitai Jaya Gora Nitai Jaya Gora Nitai Jaya Gora Srila Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Srila Prabhupada Gurudeva Gurudev Jaya Jaya Gurudev Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we first offer respectful obeisances to the personality of Godhead, Lord Narayan. Unto Narayan Rishi, the supermost human being, Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and Srila Vyasadeva, the author. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam, by rendering service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome within the heart becomes destroyed to practically nil. And thus, loving service unto the glorious Lord, who is praised with transcendental hymns, becomes established is an irrevocable fact. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 1, and I think it's text number, let's see, text number 15 today. Everybody please repeat. Antakale tu Purusha.
Antakale tu Purusha.
Agante Gata Sadvasaha.
Agante Gata Sadvasaha.
Chinyara Sangha Shastrena.
Chinyara Sana.
Spriham Dehenu Yechitam.
Spriham Dehenu Yechitam.
Antakale tu Purusha.
Antakale tu Purusha.
Agate Gata Sadvasaha.
Agate Gata Sadvasaha.
Chinyara Sangha Shastrena.
Chinyara Sangha Shastrena.
Spriham Dehenu Yechitam.
Spriham Dehenu Yechitam.
Antakale tu Purusha.
Antakale tu Purusha.
Agate gata sarvasaha.
Agate gata sarvasa.
Chinyara sangha shastrena.
Chinyata sangha sastrena.
Spriham dehenu yechaham.
Spriham dehenu yechaham.
Antakale tu purusha.
Antakale tu purusha.
Agate gata sarvasaha.
Agate gata sarvasaha.
Chinyara sangha shastrena.
Chinyata sangha sastrena.
Spriham dehenu yechatam.
Spriham dehenu yechaham.
Antakale tu purusha.
Antakale tu purusha.
Agate gata sarvatsaha.
Agate gata sarvasaha.
Chinyara sangha shastrena.
Chinyata sangha sastrena.
Spriham dehenu yechatam.
Spriham dehenu yechaham. So the second word on the last line is dehe.
Dehe, D-E-H-A-H-E.
Okay. Antakale tu purusha.
Antakale tu purusha.
Agate gata sarvasaha.
Agate gata sarvasaha.
Chinyata sangha shastrena.
Chinyara sangha shastrena.
Spriham dehe yechatam.
Spriham dehenu yechatam.
Antakale tu purusha.
Antakale tu purusha.
Agate gata sarvasaha.
Agate gata sarvasaha.
Chinyara sangha shastrena.
Chinyata sangha sastrena.
Spriham dehenu yechatam.
Spriham dehenu yechatam.
Antakale tu purusha.
Antakale tu purusha.
Agate gata sadvasaha. Chinyat asanga shastrena.
Chinyata sangha sastrena.
Spriham dehenu yechatam.
Spriham dehenu yechatam.
Antakale tu purusha.
Antakale tu purusha.
Agata gata sarvasaha.
Agate gata sarvasaha.
Chinyata sangha sastrena.
Chinyata sangha sastrena.
Spriham dehenu yecham.
Spriham dehenu yechatam.
Antakale tu purusha.
Antakale tu purusha.
Agate gata sarvasaha.
Agate gata sarvasaha.
Chinyata sangha sastrena.
Chinyata sangha shastrena.
Spriham dehenu yechatam.
Spriham dehenu yechatam.
Antakale tu purusha.
Antakale tu purusha.
Agate gata sarvasaha.
Agate gata sarvasaha.
Chinyata sangha sastrena.
Chinyata sangha shastrena.
Spriham dehenu yechatam.
Spriham dehenu yechatam.
Antakale tu purusha.
Antakale tu purusha.
Agate gata sarvasa.
Agate gata sarvasaha.
Chinyata sangha sastrena.
Chinyata sangha shastrena.
Spriham dehenu yechatam.
Spriham dehenu yechatam. Anyone else? Antakale. At the last stage of life.
At the last stage of life.
But Purushaha,
Purushaha.
a person.
A person.
Agate,
Agate.
having arrived.
Having arrived.
Gata Sadvatsaha,
Gata sangha.
without any fear of death.
Without any fear of death.
Chinyat,
Chinyat.
must cut off.
Must cut off.
Asanga,
Sangha.
non-attachment.
Non-attachment.
Shastrena,
Sastanena,
by the weapon of
by the weapon of
Griham,
Griham,
all desire,
all desire.
Dehe,
Dehe,
and the matter of the material tabernacle,
in the matter of the material tabernacle.
Anu,
Anu,
pertaining,
pertaining.
yea,
Yea,
all that,
all that.
Cha,
Cha,
also,
also.
Tam,
Come.
them. Translation, please repeat. At the last stage of one's life,
At the last stage of one's life,
one should be bold enough
one should be bold enough
not to be afraid of death,
not to be afraid of death.
but one must cut off
But one must cut off
all attachment
all attachments
to the material body
to the material body
and everything
and everything
pertaining to it,
pertaining to it,
and all desire
and all desires
thereof.
thereof.
At the last stage of one's life, one should be bold enough not to be afraid of death, but one must cut off all attachment to the material body and everything pertaining to it and all desires thereof. And Srila Prabhupada's divine purport.
Aye.
It's a little long, so try to be on your toes. The foolishness of gross materialism is that people think of making a permanent settlement in this world, although it is a settled fact that one has to give up everything here that has been created by valuable human energy. One has to give up everything here that has been created by valuable human energy. Great statesmen, scientists, philosophers, etc., who are foolish, without any information of the spirit soul, think that this life is a few years only, that this life of a few years only is all in all, and that there is nothing more than death. This poor fund of knowledge, even in the so-called learned circles of the world, is killing the vitality of human energy, and the awful result is being keenly felt. And yet, the foolish materialistic men do not care about what is going to happen in the next life. The primary instruction in Bhagavad Gita is that one should know that the identity of the individual living entity is not lost even after the end of this present body, which is nothing but an outward dress only. If one changes an old garment, so the individual living being also changes his body. And this change of body is called death. Death is therefore a process of changing the body at the end of the duration of the present life. An intelligent person must be prepared for this and must try to have the best type of body in the next life. The best type of body is a spiritual body, which is obtained by those who go back to home, back to Godhead, to the kingdom of God, or enter the realm of Brahman. In the second chapter of this canto, this matter will be broadly discussed. But as far as the change of body is concerned, one must prepare now for the next life. Foolish people attach more importance to the present temporary life. And thus the foolish leaders make appeals to the body and bodily relations. The bodily relations extend not only to this body, but also to the family members, wife, children, society, country, and so many other things which end at the end of life. After death, one forgets everything about the present bodily relations. We have little experience of this. We have a little experience of this at night when we go to sleep. While sleeping, we forget everything about the body, about this body, and bodily relations. Although this forgetfulness is a temporary situation for only a few hours. Death is nothing but sleeping for a few months in order to develop another term of bodily engagement, which we are awarded by the laws of nature according to our aspiration. Therefore, one has only to change the aspiration during the course of this present body. And for this, there is need of training in the current duration of human life. This training can be begun at any stage of life, or even a few seconds before death. But the usual procedure is for one to get the training from the very early life, from the stage of brahmacharya, and gradually progress to the grahastha, vanaprastha, and sannyas orders of life. The institution which gives such training is called Varna Ashram Dharma, or the system of Sanatan Dharma. The best procedure for making the human life perfect. One is therefore required to give up the attachment to family or social or political life just at the age of 50 years, if not earlier. And the training in the Varnashram, in the training in the Vanaprastha and Sannyas ashrams is given for preparation of the next life. Foolish materialists and the garb of leaders of the people in general stick to family life. Stick to family affairs without attempting to cut off relations with them. And thus they become victims of nature's law and get gross bodies again according to their work. Such foolish leaders may have some respect from the people at the end of life, but that does not mean that such leaders will be immune to the natural laws under which everyone is tightly bound by the hands and feet. The best thing, therefore, that everyone voluntarily give up family relations by transferring the attachment from family, society, country, and everything thereof to the devotional service of the Lord. It is stated herein that one should give up all desires of family attachment. One must have a chance for better desires. Otherwise, there is no chance of giving up such morbid desires. Desire is the concomitant factor of the living entity, The living entity is eternal, and therefore his desires, which are natural for a living being, are also eternal. One cannot, therefore, stop desiring, but the subject matter for desires can be changed. But the subject matter for desires can be changed. So one must develop the desires for returning home back to Godhead. And automatically the desires for material gain, material honor, and material popularity will diminish in proportion to the development of devotional service. A living being is meant for service activities, and his desires are centered around such a service attitude, beginning from the top executive head of the state down to the insignificant pauper in the street. All are rendering some sort of service to others. The perfection of such service attitude is only attained simply by transferring the desire of service from matter to spirit, or from Satan to God.
Well, that's a good purport for Good Friday.
Thus ends the Bhagavatam purport to the 15th verse of the first chapter of the second canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Any comment or question about this purport? Dr. John?
From what you're saying, I don't know. It seems like it's a constant struggle to try to get away from our understanding of the material body.
It's because of our attachment to the material body. That's why Prabhupada was saying training is required, and that can start any time, but he said the sooner the better. There's actually a system of training. The parents send the child to a gurukula, where there is a bona fide teacher or guru who can train the disciple in detachment. So at the school near Mama, nothing belongs to you. Nothing is mine. And one has to help the guru in any way the guru desires, even to the extent of not eating until the guru rings the bell to eat. Then the disciple fasts. Even if the wife of the guru orders one to do something, one does it. The perfect example is Krishna. When Krishna's guru's wife asked him to go collect some firewood, him and Sudama Vipra went to the forest to collect firewood, and suffered a great storm like we had yesterday, and while in the woods it turned dark and they couldn't find their way out. So they took shelter in the tree, and the next day the spiritual master went with other disciples to find them, and when he found them he was very happy for the struggle that they took to satisfy him. So one has to always be ready to satisfy the guru in the ashram. And one may do that for 5 to 25 years until one develops a perfect character. And one can stay there as a brahmachari, as a student. Brahmachari means student of Brahman. One can stay in the guru's ashram as a brahmachari, or one can return home and take up grihastha life. When he returns home, he has some training in a specific occupation depending on his nature. So they go home with their training, and family helps them find a suitable spouse, and in the days of yore, they would live with their family, with their spouse, and with the children they procreated, and they would carry out their specific occupation. And that occupation also had so many rules and regulations. The Brahmins lived by a certain code of conduct, as well as the Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Sudras. And that way one would spend their grihastha life a certain number of years. And then they would take vanaprastha and travel on pilgrimage to different holy places and temples and listen to the sadhus there, teach, and take the purification from that particular dam or sacred river. And they would travel like that, living very austere with no sexual connection between them. And then, if the person was a Brahmin, there was the possibility of taking sannyas, depending on their scholastics and detachment. They could take sannyas, and the lady would return home under the protection and care of the elder children. And the gentleman would then wander the world, being and teaching Krishna consciousness. It wasn't only the sannyasis that traveled, but there were many mendicants in those days. Even Brahmins who would travel with deities around their neck or shalagram shilas, and they would only eat whatever they cooked. And generally, because they were just traveling, they would eat roots and fruits, whatever they could find in the forest. But occasionally, coming to some grihastha's house, they would maybe get some milk, or perhaps the grihastha would make arrangements for them to cook. And they would cook and offer to their deity, and that way then they would eat something and maybe provide something for the rest of the household from their cooking. But the householders had the chance to serve a mendicant whose mind is only fixed on God. He's, according to the ashram, he's not supposed to be contemplating other things, doesn't really think about politics anymore or social life, all these types of things that interest us common people. And actually, common people would never take sannyas. Not even the Vaishyas or the Kshatriyas, although they would maybe go to the forest and practice yoga, the highly qualified ones. But the Sudras, the bulk of the population, common people, the working class man, they would generally stay at home under the protection of the family and try to fix their mind on God. That was a more natural situation for them. And nowadays it's recommended that one go to a temple, like we're doing now, a society that is involved in simply devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and find some shelter there and spend their life assisting in the mission. That's more highly recommended. And, we even see in Prabhupada's International Society for Krishna Consciousness, the sannyasis don't just wander the globe or wander India, but they usually have some base and they travel around the society like that. And so that's just more suitable for very weak people in this age. Our life and health is all very weak, very short. The power of mind isn't very strong. Krishna provides some suitable instruction for protection. So it begins very early in the Guru's ashram. One learns this attachment while also learning their studies, their particular study for their particular occupation, as well as Vedic scriptures. Of course, the Brahmins mainly concentrating on Vedic scriptures, and Sanskrit language and mantras and rituals and things of that nature. Maybe they'll also learn, astrology and various other Vedic types of sciences. But the Kshatriyas are naturally going to learn political science and rule and administration and judgment, court administration, stuff of that nature, as well as warfare and battle, and the ability to master weapons. And Vaishyas, they pretty much can learn their family business at home, just being a part of it. But there's lessons that are taught for economics, with the speak of cow protection. But basically, these things can, if the family is a family of cowherds, you can learn that right at home, practically speaking. So, how much of that the guru may teach a little bit higher science of economics, the reasoning behind it. And usually these high-class Vaishyas are coming from wealthy mercantile families and banking families. So they would learn Shastric lessons on how not to hoard wealth. How wealth is meant for the benefit of everyone. And if one has the prowess to produce it, then they're supposed to also have the intelligence to distribute it. So these Vaishyas would pay money to the Kshatriya governments to provide protection, as well as roads, transportation, recreational facilities like parks, as well as to dig many kundas and wells and things of that nature to help provide for the people. But the Vaishyas were producing the wealth through mercantilism and cow protection and agriculture. They were agriculturalists. People go to college nowadays for agricultural stuff. It's a common thing. Some of the biggest schools in the world are agricultural and engineering schools. So, they would learn, all about agriculture in the Guru's ashram as well as at home. And the Sudras also learned their art mainly at home. These things were passed down in family dynasties, heritages. A person who was a sculptor, they would learn this at home, or a person who was a deity wala. They would learn sculpture of the deity from their families as well as gurus, because these things are given in the Shastras. But, you see the family doing this day after day, sculpturing deities, or people who are sculpturing various things on buildings or temples or making signs. So all these things, many of them were learned at home. Sudras have thousands of jobs that had to be executed. They had to make society go around so people would be expert in these and proficient in these different occupations. Somebody would be somebody who would make swords or weapons, just like they're gunsmiths. Nowadays it's all big manufacturers run by big capitalists nowadays, but they create weapons. So it's not just a family affair. It may be a big family affair. But they create all these weapons and then they sell them around the world for money. And they actually compete amongst one another, the big countries, for selling weapons. It brings money. And at the same time, their weapons are tested. They have standard weapons, but they're always developing new weapons. And we have talked about it yesterday, how the world's always at war. So, one of the reasons is there's no real control on the weapon making. The countries are constantly involved in weapon making and selling their weapons. They'll even sell it to, bands of revolutionary groups. It becomes commerce to deal in weapons. Just like you have big pharmaceutical industries that were dealing in very technical pain control medicine. And they were selling that all over. So much so that it became an epidemic of pain control medicine being loose in the public. And people all over the world getting addicted to it because it was all made from opiates, which is highly addictive. It's said in Kali Yuga, it's a fight between people with Vaishya mentalities and people with Sudra mentalities. So they fight over the wealth. It's hard to find real Brahmins and Kshatriyas. So, Lord Chaitanya's movement is very interesting because Lord Chaitanya appeared as the best of the Brahmins. And he created a Brahminical heritage. And he empowered his devotees to spread Sankirtan as the Jugga for the age. And Nityananda Prabhu would preach amongst the masses, amongst the Vaishyas and the Sudras, which generally in traditional India, they would never accept disciples from outside the Brahmin caste. Brahmins only initiate Brahmins, only initiate Sudras and Vaishyas. So, but Nityananda Prabhu was preaching amongst all the common people, teaching them Krishna consciousness. Lord Chaitanya, he had more elevated disciples from a material point of view, and of course spiritually they were very advanced. But Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya he was a Bhattacharya. That means that he was a topmost Brahmin in society. He knew the Shastras and could articulate those Shastras and had many disciples or students. And they had Ramananda Roy, who was a Sudra governor coming from a particular caste that was involved in running governments for big Kshatriyas. And he was a governor in South India. But he was a great devotee, and Lord Chaitanya actually imbued him so much with love for God that he asked him to give up his post and come back with him to stay in his at his base in Jagannath Puri. And Lord Chaitanya, he delivered the dacoits, Jagai and Madai. The Jagai and Madai were from Brahmin families who had fallen down. They were not Sudra caste. They were Brahmin caste people who had become debauchees, who thought that in order to protect the Hindu culture, you had to eat meat and drink wine and take pleasure in the world, as the Malechas and Yavanas do. So they had become, they ended up becoming very much affected by all that drinking and gluttonous activity that they were involved in, and were constantly committing crimes in the civilian civilization. But they were delivered by Lord Chaitanya and then became extremely repentant and always felt sorry for the things. They couldn't even remember the faces of the people they offended, so they would bow down and offer obeisances to everyone because they just figured that there was a good possibility they had offended that person, either stolen something from them. I mean, they did horrible things, so they would, but they couldn't even remember who they were practically. And there were so many of them. So, in the Gurukula, it can begin there, but how do we do it later in life? Of course, moving to a temple, puts a great burden on one because, you automatically have to develop some detachment. Because if you don't have detachment, it's very difficult to live in such a community. You have to become extremely tolerant and humble. And without that, it's very difficult. It's almost impossible. And there's always the possibility you'll offend someone. So, at any time it can begin. The example was given when Gokula gave class on Wednesday of Katvanga Maharaj, who in a few seconds he surrendered to Krishna at the end of his life. But such a person was probably trained in Gurukula in the beginning of life, and then went on to do the occupation. The advantage of being trained young is you can go out there and you can deal with occupations like being a military general, or being a mayor, being involved in governance and protection of the common people without, becoming corrupt. You have a good background, and that keeps you more detached, and a strong ethical character with strong integrity, to the extent that one can actually give that up for their spiritual advancement. It's very difficult, for politicians to give that up, because their life is based on it. They're providing for their families that way, but not only their families, they get involved, they're providing for counties and districts and even states. They have so many deals going on behind the scenes with big money people and corporations, and they're able to bring those things back to their people. So they're not only attached to their body and their family's bodies, but to a whole country's bodies. And you tend to start thinking of yourself as the person who is protecting all these people, and who can do it but you, because you have the connection. You've already given up your life to it through corruption. Sometimes higher powers actually take such people to court, because many times it's against the law to be taking deals on the side for simply, in other words, they're taking money, and these people may be opening factories and whatnot in their states, but that person is passing legislation for them. They may be doing something like making something that in previous legislation, was forcing them to do things that was much more costly and time-consuming. They didn't want to do it. So by paying off somebody else, you may be able to change those rules. So sometimes higher powers see what's going on, and they perform an investigation, and they're able to capture it on tape or on video, and they take it to court. They turn it over to, the district attorney or the police force, and they get that person put in jail. This happens to politicians all the time. I had a really good friend who was a natural politician, diplomat, from as long as I knew him. And he was a very intelligent fellow. Always, he wasn't a great warrior, but he had a lot of warrior friends, and he could inspire people like that. And very articulate and very good administrator, and very hard worker and servant. Right out of college, he became the mayor of the town, practically speaking. Went on to become the president of the county, but he ended up getting brought down by his political enemies because he took some money on the side for contracts, and he awarded some posts to people that wasn't fully qualified. So I forget what they call that. What do they call that when people do that? They call it that's probably, but when you give posts to your family members.
Nepotism.
Nepotism, yeah. So that's a common thing that goes on. So he was, basically they were able to bring him down, and he had to go to jail for 4 years.
Wow.
In a white-collar prison, though. They have prisons for people who are more sophisticated, and prisons for the common man. So he got to go to a federal prison, white collar,
Yeah.
type of prison. Still, it was difficult. He became a counselor for people because he was always an upbeat person, and even in that situation, he just became religious and was upbeat. And when he got out, he actually they employed him in ministry. Became a minister for dealing with people who were in prisons and when they get out of prisons, and how to help them to not just do things like find jobs, but how to be more godly and have faith and not become depressed and like that. So even in prison, he was a very upbeat person. At that time, I could write him a lot, and he could, I guess, was forced to listen to a little Krishna consciousness. But as soon as he got out, it became a challenge between him and me. He wanted to save me. But so anyway, I haven't seen him in almost a couple of years. I saw him at my other friend's funeral, who passed away, and he was extremely articulate person. So of course he went up there and made a beautiful speech about my old friend, So I know anyway. Hope So he learned it. He learned a lesson. Though he suffered instant karma and took up, in one sense, a better way of life. Didn't want to have anything to do with politics again, even though he was young and young enough to, be very involved in one of the political parties in one of the states of the United States. But he gave up politics, took up ministry and helping people through ministry, specifically in prisons, which God knows they needed. They really needed. Anything else? It's already 8:30.
I was going to say that one thing I noticed that when this cathedral burned down, Notre Dame, they would say, this is our cultural heritage, this is our identity as French people. And someone else from another country was saying, it's like the biggest, the most beautiful museum in the world. Nothing about God, or that this was a spiritual inspiration for people, a place that a sanctuary. It was all about that it was the best tourist spot, the biggest tourist attraction. It was part of the French identity, the material identity. They didn't say anything about how it inspired them to get closer to God. And even the political leaders at that moment, it was all humanism. It was nothing. I found it really fascinating. Someone said something once a little bit about religion, but the main emphasis was on the tourism and it's a really good museum, and it's our culture, and it's the French identity, which is an illusion. So in other words, that place was actually supposed to be taking them away from identifying with French, English, German, but instead that's what they identified as their French culture.
The French life after life.
Yeah.
It can happen, Indian life after life, Russian life after life, American or, some similar thing, Irish life after life, people get very involved in these identities,
One time I had this kind of, it was with another guy, actually it was just a Dumya before, I don't think he was sannyasi, he was Vandana, and we saw this situation at the University of Georgia in Athens, Georgia. I had a preaching seminar, and they came and spent some time there with me. So there was something going on between the whites and the blacks. And you could see them staring with hatred, meditating on each other. And I just kept thinking, they're so much absorbed in the black person or so much absorbed in the white person that most likely they're going to switch sides next time around.
Good possibility. I was I was reading, it's in the new Back to Godhead magazine, there's a little article about reincarnation and some documentation there from some of the professors in the world that have documented it. And this devotee was doing, he was writing to prove how there could be little fraud in these cases. Very,
Fraud in what case?
in cases that document reincarnation. Children that are remembering previous lives. How really there's no money involved in it, how there's no fame involved in it, etc. So there's different reasons that people get to find that this has probably been something that's staged. Parents had indoctrinated the child in this way and for such and such reasons. So he was showing that it wasn't. And he mentioned one case that was very sophisticated, and why this case you could never prove it to be fraudulent. It's a Hindu family who had a little boy with the name Kumar. It was a Kumar family. And from the time this boy was born, when he first started to speak, they couldn't get him to say Baba or Father in the local dialect, the Hindi dialect. He would always say, I think Abba, which is the Muslim Urdu, or that's the language, Urdu style of speaking. And there was a wandering Muslim guy who would pass through the Hindu part of town from the Muslim town that was, I think, 5 kilometers away. And he would always follow that person. And more, the more he learned to talk, the more he would tell his family that he was from such and such town. And they would try to ignore it. It's actually stated that many times people of different religious faiths, they just tend to ignore children who are talking about being something else. They prefer to just erase it. But, he got more and more, he would say more and more things, and finally he followed this man and confronted him and called him father when he was about 6 or 7 years old. The man was sort of just aghast and went away. You can read this in the new BTG. My presentations, maybe I'll just try to highlight it and make you interested in the article. But anyway, the boy went away and he begged his mother to take him there. The mother refused, they refused, but finally they were forced to take him. And he led them, through the town directly to that people's houses, even though neither the mother nor him were familiar with it at all. He knew exactly where to go. He went into the house and same father was there, he knew his mother, he knew by name all of his brothers and sisters. They would question him about things, and he knew these things, and he told them who he was. And he was, one of the children who had passed away in an accident. And the family became, the immediate family, the father and mother, became convinced of reincarnation, even though that's not a part of Muslim belief system or the Korean, I would suppose. But his sister, when she was questioned, so what do you think now? She just said, we don't believe in reincarnation. So she just adopted their religious belief. It just didn't, they wouldn't change them. She didn't know exactly what was going on, but she said, we don't believe in reincarnation. But the parents were so stunned that, they had to admit that this was their son, previous life. And he would say things, he would speak and talk with emotion. I mean, he wanted to be there. He still was holding on to that identity. It was a real interesting article. Everybody should try to read that.
I saw some documentary on it, but about maybe 5-10 years ago, and this was just like a network news station, and they had several cases. Like there was one young boy who knew everything about this man that had been and had been shot down, and he knew everything about the battles that he had been in, and he had knowledge that the parents didn't know anything about this person, I mean, there's several cases like that where, especially apparently, it's mainly in the first 5 years or 6 years that they remember, and then after a while it goes away. But there's a lot of stories like that where these young children can remember things about somebody that the family has no contact with. And this was one specific one where he was remembering things about this person who was a famous, or not a famous, but a very, he had been in a lot of important air battles during one war, and he knew different details about it. And nobody could understand how he knew it. So there are lots of cases like that. But what's interesting about this one is that it's a way of possibly the Hindus and Muslims seeing.
Well, it said that in there wouldn't be fraud in the Hindu families because they all believe in reincarnation, so they don't have any interest in trying to prove it amongst themselves. But they deal with it in different ways. Usually they don't want the child, identifying with another caste or this or that. And the Muslims also, they don't want, it's not a part of their doctrine, so they don't want it going on. They'll go to the extent of spanking the child for such memories, continue memories like this. And so they document that this goes on in these different cultures when people have children and have these past memories, that the way the Muslim families deal with it and the way the Hindu families deal with it, neither one of them want the children to be, they don't want to make it public, they don't want to make a big deal out of it, In fact, they want to actually eliminate it from their current life.
So this is written by Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, right?
Yeah, so anybody who reads his stuff online, you can probably get that newest BTG article from that.
Actually told part of the story on my Monday class, but
I told part of it on your Monday class.
only
He's well read, he's a really good writer. Okay, Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.